My brothers and sisters, and my beloved confreres, I extend a very hearty welcome to all of you on the 13th Sunday of the liturgical calendar to reflect with me about the readings that are presented to us. After having read all the three readings of the day from the book of the Kings, from the letter to the Romans, as well as from the Gospel of Matthew, I'm inclined to define it in this way: divine providence in human contradictions. Divine providence in human contradictions. I was just wondering, in everything that we meet and encounter, there is an inherent contradiction. You go to a beach, you see a calm sea there, and you see, wow, how calm the sea is. There is an already inherent discernment. Sea can also be turbulent and violent. You go to a house to visit one of your friends. As you open the gate and enter, you see a huge dog lying there looking at you. But it is shaking its tail, and you say, the dog is very mild today. There is an inherent definition therein. The dog can also be very violent and aggressive. And this is very clearly seen in every human aspect. Human beings are faced with inherent contradictions in their life situations, in their relationships, and in their families. It is vividly explained also in the Gospels. If there is a poor Lazarus, there is a rich man at the rear end. If there is a justifying Pharisee in the front side of the synagogue, there is a publican standing behind. If there is a righteous group of people who are condemning a woman, there is a prostitute caught red-handed in adultery. If there is a Simon the Pharisee who is very rich and hosting a wedding feast, there is equally a sinner woman washing the feet of Jesus with her tears. Contradictions of life is very clearly, evidently seen in human life. And that is precisely the reason for today's gospel, where Jesus says, anyone who loves me, if he loves the father and mother more than me, he is not worthy of me. If he loves his daughter or his son more than me, he is not worthy of me. If you do not carry your cross and follow me, you are not worthy of me. If you save your life, or at least try to save it, you will lose it. But if you lose it for my sake, you will gain it. What an apparently contradicting statements that are given by Jesus in a very philosophical manner for us to look into, evaluate, and to meditate. My brothers and sisters, these particular expressions of Jesus should not be read in the very statement alone. We need to have a background looking. You would see a bit before this particular passage in the Gospel of Matthew itself, in chapter 10, Jesus speaks about the possible contradictions that we would encounter in life. He says, I have not come to bring peace on earth. I have come to bring a sword instead. If you read the book of Isaiah, Isaiah would foretell about the coming Messiah as the Prince of Peace. And what does Jesus speak about peace? He says in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 5 verse 9 on the Sermon on the Mount, blessed are the peacemakers. You would see the same thing in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 10 verse 12. Jesus telling his apostles when he sends them for the mission work, whenever you enter a house, greet them with peace. But this peace which Jesus is giving is not an automatically happening event, but instead it has got a face to be looked at. Yet another aspect of the peace of Christ is beautifully brought in by Simeon the priest. When he was given this opportunity to encounter the Messiah, as Mary and Joseph came to the temple to offer Jesus, he takes the little child and makes a wonderful statement there. Today I am blessed. My eyes have seen the promised one. Let me die now in peace. But he says, this child shall be the cause for the fall and rise of many in Israel. And looking at his own mother, the mother of the child, Simeon makes a prophecy. Through your soul, a sword shall pierce. Because the child whom you are holding now is a dangerous child. My brothers and sisters, peace is never attained without struggle before that. Every human being encounters in his personal life the struggles to rear children, the struggles to live in peaceful relationship with the other, the struggle to overcome one's own egoism and to love the other more than what we think. And that is exactly the contradiction that is expected of it. When Jesus says today that you should carry your cross and follow me, he is asking you to give up the possibilities of your life merely from an external aspect of it. What is this cross? The cross has a Persian backing. It is a symbol of a man who is never wanted, neither by God nor by the human being. You are thrown between heaven and earth. Therefore, you have a treacherous end. But if you carry even that shameful event of your life, you would have a peace that is emerging from a higher dimensions of your life. The divine providence in human contradictions. My brothers and sisters, look into your own personal lives, especially those of us who have families. Look into our own families. What are these words that we are finding here? What are these peacelessness that we are encountering in the context of our lives? They are not merely manhandling or brutal violence of physical level. Much more, they are internal struggles. The difficulty that I encounter in order to understand the viewpoints of my wife. The difficulty that I encounter in order to understand the perspectives and the lifestyle of my husband. The difficulties that I have in my family in order to look into the lifestyle of my children who live in a different manner than me. All these are swords that will pierce our souls. I have heard very many parents telling, Father, I toiled my whole life. I have worked like a donkey for the sake of my family. But I see today my children do not need me. What a tragic experience of a desperate man. One who has lived and toiled whole life in order to rear the family. But once the family is settled, he is nowhere in the picture. One of the things that I find is this word very often is bought by us. The greatest struggles that a human being is facing today in the world is not the problem of faith. In fact, it is the problem of overloaded occupation with activities. Today, my brothers and sisters, human beings can fly high in the sky. They can go deep down into the sea. They can define the smallest of the molecules. But you and I are not able to define ourselves. What on earth am I here for? The meaning of my life, the purpose of my life is not clarified. Have you sat together with your family, your wife, your children, your father, your mother, and just asked, what are we as a family building up for ourselves? Have we bent before the Lord time and again, certain times when unexpected struggles are encountering our family life, when questions that come for which we have no answer? That's precisely, I say, the distance between your problem and its solution is the distance between your knee and the floor. Remember, my brothers and sisters, the distance between your problem and its solution is the distance between your knee and the floor. The more you bend before the Lord to listen attentively to Him, you have the clarity of the answer for the contradictions that you find in your life. We need a time. Even at this moment of the pandemic, when we are struggling with one or the other problem, when our freedom of movement is questioned and challenged, when we speak more and more about what is going to happen, remember the plan of God in its providence is being fulfilled in our life. We need to see the brighter side of life, try to bring it up at the best of our ability. When I was dialoguing with my own confreres, I used to always tell them one thing. My brothers, let us see the struggles that we have, but at the same time, gather all the good things that are also happening out of these struggles. I say, my confreres today are able to come together for the meals. They are praying together all the more vigorously, living their life with such a conviction. Not that they were not doing it, but some of the distractions that come through our apostolate and ministries have to be understood from the point of view of our discipleship before the Lord. And that's exactly what is happening today. There is brighter side for every so-called negative events that are happening in our life. Shall we catch hold of it? That's exactly what we see today in the first reading. There is a prophet Elisha, a man who desired to have double the power than Elijah, his master. And that same man, today, when he is at his ministry, he finds certain contradictions welling up in his life. Contradictions that he himself never expected. He is at Shunem, at the house of a woman who is very wealthy. She has a lot of property. She has a husband, but she has one thing lacking in her life: a child. She does not have a child. She is generous, hospitable, and communicating the generosity through taking care of this prophet. And the prophet asks her the question, what do you need? Do you need a place anywhere to live in? I can influence the king and the palace. But she says, my God has given me everything. But finally, he grants her the blessing that you will have a child. But later we will find, which is not there in the passage, one aspect where the prophet failed to understand his commitment. A prophet is the one who discerns the will of God and communicates that to the people. But perhaps Elisha has a failure here. When this woman runs and comes to him for a need, he does not understand why she is clinging on to his leg and crying to him. He says, God has not opened his mind to me. A prophet will understand the plan of God when he himself is able to open up to God his mind. God's mind works on our mind when we are able to listen attentively to God. He sends his servant to raise the child, the dead child of this woman. But as he touches the child with the staff, the child does not move. The prophet has to directly intervene and touch the child in order to raise that child to life. You have to, as a priest, my confreres, involve ourselves in the most effective manner by looking at God as the possibilities of our life. Sometimes I wonder why people call us Father. They call us as priests representing Jesus Christ. Each time when a person comes across us, he tells, praise be Jesus Christ. We are representing the person of Christ. Even our own parents sometimes call us Father. Those who biologically gave birth to us calling us Father. You become a father because you represent Jesus Christ in the contradictions of your life. Today, my brothers and sisters, we are invited to a new perspective of life. Contradictions are inherent in human life. You see that everywhere, in every aspect of your life. I just was wondering how we need to rely on God's power in spite of the contradictions that we feel. You will be questioned over things that you did and you did not do. You have a lot of opportunities to encounter contradictions of your life. But at the same time, remember, when you do everything for the sake of your God, you will be taken care. Today, I wish each one of you, in the midst of human contradictions, to find your own possibilities in the divine providence of God. May God bless each of us to have a wonderful celebration of this Sunday in the light of the readings that are presented to us. Let the word of God become effective in our life. Amen.